The new president of Malawi has been in office for roughly a month now, and today he gave us an opportunity to have a chat with him, and we were in conversation about what he saw as the future for Malawi and some of the things that needs to be done. And he's also done quite a few things already, and he explained to me why he took those steps and what they meant. This is how the conversation went. Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Malawi, Dr. Lazarus Chakwera, thanks very much indeed for joining us. Welcome to the program. You've been in office for a few weeks now already. How difficult has the job been so far?
It's been a good challenge, and we knew going in that it would be a challenge, just like I stated in my inaugural address. This is part of what we are beginning to do so that not only should we lay a foundation that is strong for the prospect of a Malawi that will be good for everyone, we also need to know that there are those things we need to do, and palatable as they might be, in order for us all to pay the price and sacrifice for a better generation to come.
You talk about paying the price and a sacrifice. What is that going to mean, actually?
What that means, actually, is that those who go into government, to put it like some author did, it's not their time to eat. This is a time to make sure that we live for others, we serve, and that future generations will look back and say, we were able to deny ourselves because we wanted something better for our children and grandchildren.
All right, so you've hit the ground running almost immediately. I mean, we saw you dissolve a number of boards. Take us through that. What was the motivation behind that? Some might say it was just to get your people in.
Well, you know, these things usually do take place, a new administration that comes in. But I can tell you, Peter, that what has been going on has been really an abuse and a misuse and a misappropriation and of taxpayers' money through some of these boards. And so we wanted to make sure that we look or take a look again at these boards and make sure we compose them in a manner that will befit the service delivery that we want Malawians to have. And so, yes, while it is an expected thing that the new administration will do that, it is beyond just trying to bring in your people, so to say, because these, some of them, actually, there are several categories. Some of them have legal instruments that require certain things to take place. And so you can't necessarily just bring in anyone and everyone you want.
Was there corruption in the last administration that you're trying to manage and deal with immediately?
Oh, I tell you what. Sometimes when you look at the depth of the corruption that has really gone through all of the ministries and departments and agencies, you realize that we have quite a job to clear that rubble, so to speak, because people have been complicit, and then systems have been allowed to go. Sometimes institutions have been weakened deliberately, but my desire is to make sure that all of the institutions, governance institutions, should operate independently and should be funded. And then the personnel should be there to be able to work so that they deliver and not, kind of suppress them at all. And so this is the setup that we are involved in, but I can tell you it's a big fight.
All right, so do you have any idea just how far up the food chain this corruption took place? And no matter how high it gets, are you fearlessly going to chase justice?
I tell you, from the very top all the way down to um, uh, district and councils and so forth, you can see traces of this disease. And so we will have to really make sure that nobody is spared, and that this is not a personal issue. This is an issue that says we either save the country or we sink together. And so this is the fight that we have to brace up for.
So one of the things that you had to do immediately, of course, was to put together a cabinet, and a lot of questions were raised by the choices that you made. Take us through the motivation of the people that you chose to put together as your team.
There were several factors. Some areas that needed, according to the law, to make sure that we fulfill the quotas that are needed. And some areas had to do with bringing in expertise. Other areas had to do with what do we have as members of parliament, because when ministers are not in parliament, they do not become voting members. They are like, one would say, strangers in the house, even though they do bring their expertise. And so you have to balance all of those things. And of course, then we have all of our partners that we went into the election with. And in as much as not everyone can be in cabinet, which they understand, we have different departments and agencies of government that everyone would need to be involved in, so that we are together as a team building a new Malawi.
All right. So are your partners happy? Because it looks like it's mostly your party and the deputy president's party that got seats in cabinet by and large, except a couple of people maybe.
Well, people, until you talk to them, until you explain, will always have some misgivings, and that is expected. But I think so far we have managed to be able to bring everybody on board to understand the dynamics that are involved.
One of the things that you've said actually is that you want to work with people as a team. So was there consultation with your coalition partners and beyond to get this team right?
Consultations have been there before election and after election, and will continue even as we speak.
All right, let's talk about what else you need to do immediately. You're fighting corruption, you've changed the boards, you've got a cabinet. What needs to happen straight away? What's on your to-do list as urgent?
Well, we've got to make sure that before the planting season, farmers will get farm inputs so that we can enable them to produce more, not just for consumption, but for sale. This has been one of our promises, and our Minister of Finance is busy now making sure that consultations take place so that we have a substantive budget presented not too long, because when our fiscal year ran out, almost before it ran out, we had to present a financial statement that allowed for us to be able to spend for a couple of months or more before that budget is presented. And so we are busy doing that. We're busy making sure that we create an environment in which modalities are put in place for creating jobs for our young people, and for creating a system. We put a stop to some of the abuse in lending or financial lending institutions, so that there's a system where everybody can benefit and not just party functionaries. And so this is being put in place. We are looking to development partners, people who seek invest, from around the region, from around the world. And we need to industrialize. We need to create an environment in which we'll do more trade, not just expect aid. And we will also make sure that ministers deliver. And I have spoken to them to make sure that everyone looks to the Malawian as their final judge, because they are the people we serve and they are the people who put us in power.
And you've given them 5 months. Are you going to be true to your word that those that don't perform, you're going to move them out?
Well, that's what I said, and so we wait for 5 months. We do have challenges, but I believe Malawians will be best judges, and they will be able to advise us what to do. The truth of the matter is, Peter, there are a lot of qualified people everywhere, men and women and young people. And so it's not a matter of saying when you have a cabinet, these are the only people. There are many more out there who could, and they will work in different other aspects. And so when somebody is in cabinet or not in cabinet, it has very little to say about their abilities or availability of those abilities and capacities. We just need to know that in a team, you can reposition yourself and some people can play better at a different position so that you all win. And the important thing is let the team win.
Talking about the team, I think it's no secret, and it's not unique to Malawi, where often there's a split along regional and ethnic lines, and the voting patterns almost suggested that as well. How do you bring all of Malawi together, all Malawians together under one vision and one banner? I mean, there are 41% of the people that didn't vote for you.
That might be true. Actually, in fact, when I took the oath of office, I did mention that the Malawi that we're looking to build is a Malawi that will be for everyone, including those who may not have voted for me. But you see, we have across the country almost a third of those that voted for us through our various connections, because the Tonse Alliance is spread across the whole nation. We have people that voted for us, not just from where I come from, but across the nation. And we want to be able to say deliberately, let us get everyone involved. These things should cease from being a tribal or a regional or a religious system altogether, but that surpassing all of those things, let everyone feel like, hey, this is home and I got a place and I can build and do something toward its prosperity. So that is the spirit in which we want to do this. In fact, I even created a ministry that had never been there before by making sure that those that get involved in civic education should combine it with the idea of national unity. And it is a deliberate move so that everyone should feel like this is, I'm in it. This is my country.
All right, so one of the big battles that you also have to face almost immediately is COVID-19, the coronavirus. I believe there are 3,302 confirmed infections, 76 deaths that have been recorded, 2,000 active cases now. As you go forward, is something like a lockdown something that you're considering? I know that President Mutharika tried, but the courts pushed him back. What are your thoughts on how you manage this pandemic going forward?
You know, this is a very serious problem, and I think all of us in some way are affected because we've lost friends, we've lost colleagues, we've lost a member of parliament, and it is something that is too close for comfort. What we are doing is to encourage measures that will mitigate this, get PPEs for our workforce, those that are fighting this at the forefront. We have lost people from across society, service providers, police, and so forth, and medical workers. What we want to do, apart from restrictions that are there because of this case that went to court, we even have medical doctors association that did not recommend a full lockdown because they understand the implications of how that becomes impractical. However, there will be restrictions, and there may be, as we get advised, particular clusters where you could impose a specific lockdown for a specific place. But these things being in court as we speak, we will wait until we are given direction. But I think it's a fight everyone now recognizes everyone has to participate in if we all win.
All right, so during the election process, we didn't see a lot of people wearing masks and social distancing. Is this something that you're trying to encourage now?
Yes, we are, and the clusters, for example, in workplaces, in offices, that began to flare up. So we're saying, do this. And at Capitol Hill, the word is out. Everyone who goes to an office, have your mask on. Do not just observe hygiene practices before you enter into your office space. Even while you're in there, make sure that you are continuously following these things and ways of avoiding getting into this trap where now there are more and more infections being spread through communities, when in fact the initial spread of this was because of those we had imported into the country.
All right, let's talk a little bit about foreign policy. You're part of an international community and you've traveled yourself, so you know what's out there. What kind of foreign policy are you looking to change and perhaps be what you want to be a mark of your presidency?
You know, I really want to make sure I made a little reference when I made my inaugural speech that we have a vision and we desire to move in the direction of that vision. And so those international partners that look at that, and then we could ask, or they could say, we can offer this type of assistance to help you accomplish that vision. That should be the way to do it, rather than for programs to come in the country and we have no direction, and then to be doing a multiplicity of activities that do not really achieve much. So that would be part of it. But we are part of an international family, immediate neighbors that surround us. And through the Ubuntu philosophy, we all belong together. Some of these geopolitical boundaries were done by colonialists of old, and we have accepted that through the AU, which came after the OAU. But we realize that we have to have good neighborliness in SADC region, even in trade regions like COMESA and so forth. We need to work together more closely. I want to be sure that we have no lockdown thinking of a country like Malawi, no access to the sea, and then thinking that you could isolate yourself. We live in a community, and I intend to make sure our relationships with our neighbors are stronger, much stronger, I dare say, than they are now. And so my brothers, I have spoken to each one of them, and we want to build those relations. For COVID-19, I would have already made sure that we have personally met. But beyond Africa, But we're talking about issues to do with trade and not aid. We're talking about issues to do with empowerment of the people. And so those things that help Malawians prosper together, Malawians move out of abject poverty. These are the things that we will be looking for even when we relate with our international neighbors.
You talk about communities, and a lot of people might say, look, we know about the African Union, COMESA, SADC, which you belong to. And some would say, you know, these communities have done very little for us, actually. What are you going to bring to the AU, to SADC, to COMESA, perhaps to enthuse them, to energize them so that they do act on behalf of the people they represent?
Well, you know, part of what needs to happen is the domestication of the protocols that our leadership, talk about, but then there is very little to show for on the ground. And so we ought to be actually trading amongst ourselves much more. You know, if you look to, you look at what happens in Europe, for example, almost 95% of trade is amongst themselves. Here, it's the very opposite. About 5% is amongst ourselves. We can do more than this. And we can look at, what the desire has been for Africa. And yet the implementation has not followed that desire. And so when we meet in these fora, it's not just a matter of sharing coffee together. It's a matter of saying, let's do what needs to happen. And my particular passion would be to say, those things that make us stronger, why don't we follow, one step and 2 steps and 3 steps, rather than have all these piles of policies and protocols that mean nothing to our people.
I believe that you've already reached out to President Kagame as one of the people that you've picked up the phone to, and I believe he's going to be visiting Malawi next month. Is this to get some advice and perhaps, I don't know, whether Rwanda is a model that you'd like to follow?
Well, I don't know where you picked up about him visiting next month. Some social media stuff sometimes that purportedly they supposed to come from my office is something I should be the first to know. My foreign minister should be the first to know, and we know nothing about that. But not that, withstanding that, we intend after the sky ways open up, because COVID-19 has pretty much shut the whole world down. Once the possibility is there, we will not just visit 1 or 2. We will be able to learn or borrow a leaf from those countries that have decidedly made progress in the right decision, the right direction. And so I would be very happy to talk with President Kagame, President Nana Ghana, President from Nigeria, but my good friend is, Ramaphosa, because I want us to have a much closer relationship with South Africa, but so is Magufuli, and so is Lungu, and so is Nyusi, and because these are my immediate neighbors, and of course, my brother Nangagwa in Zimbabwe. We are same peoples. And so what I'm looking at is how can we all prosper together? If one nation is steamed in abject poverty, the rest of them are being pulled down. And so we need to all rise.
Are you going to be a president that's not afraid to speak out? Because one of the things that we've seen is presidents who use the word, we cannot interfere in other countries. When wrongdoing is happening in a neighboring country and citizens there are being pushed down under dictatorships and authorities perhaps abuse their power, Are you going to speak out on behalf of these people? Because in the past, we've seen a lot of heads of state in the region who really just have kept quiet and perhaps tried quiet diplomacy, because sometimes I think voices need to be heard.
Well, I'm not one that shies away from speaking out. And so sometimes people say I speak too much. But no, I would not be afraid of speaking out. Second of all, we must understand that, like it has been said, we live in a global village. What happens in one country affects the neighboring country. In fact, sometimes even far away countries get affected by that. And so we are one humanity. And that is one more reason we should say, let's sit together, let's reason together, let's find ways of serving our people more faithfully and more sacrificially and so forth. And now that I'm in and I found my brethren there, I'm sure they will also help me in my perception of things. But I believe that we should not be too concerned about self-preservation. We should be more concerned about service to our nations.
You have a lot of Malawians in the diaspora with skills, doctors all over the world, engineers, teachers, you name it, they're out there. What's your message to the diaspora?
My message to everyone really out there is that Malawi needs you. We all need you. We know that you are serving humanity and you are doing a fantastic job at that. And many of the brains out there are making nations tick and move forward. Malawi does need the same. In fact, I have examples of those who say, we have well-paid jobs where we are, but for the sake of Malawi, I'm coming home and I want to participate in this rebuilding process. That is the way to go, because in as much as we want to create an environment in which we're able to have the best doctors remunerated according to what they know and what they are, the truth of the matter is the economy and the fiscus is so small at this stage, it will have to take somebody sacrificing and saying, I'm going home and I will help rebuild that country, even if it means getting less than what they are able to get wherever they are right now. I already have examples of those that have come to say, let's do this. And it's a sacrifice, yes, but it is something that will pay dividends in future because we are building not for ourselves, but for those to come.
All right, so as we start to wrap up this conversation, coming back home, you keep talking about working together and building this country together. Does that mean working with your opposition members across the aisle?
Yes, sir, it does mean, it includes that. In fact, I have gone public and say, not only once, but particularly in this inaugural speech, I says, I will be deliberately making efforts to meet with the leader of opposition and talk about common approaches, things that need to move in Parliament for the sake of Malawians, not for the sake of partisan interest. And so, yes, I get them to understand that this will involve all of us. By the way, when they are in Parliament, for example, they are part of government because Parliament is one arm of government, and there are opposition people. So they are part of government that needs to run this administration as well, despite the fact that we provide the leadership in the executive.
All right, so now you are a man of God, you're a man of church. What does this experience and this identity bring to your job as president?
Oh, I'll tell you what, all I believe is that I'm who I am and what I am by God's grace, and that cannot be denied. But I look at this as an extension of the ministry that I have always had. and we may take orders. Whenever you have a general over your army, they will direct you to go this way and to go that way, and you say, yes, sir. And so I'm taking orders. I'm taking orders to serve Malawian people, and I will not deny my faith. But we have a constitution in this country that helps us run the country according to that supreme law. And it is not my personal faith that I say, you got to do this. I got to look at what the law says, because I want to be a president that respects the rule of law.
All right. And finally, when we talk again, hopefully this time next year, what will you have been able to say, this is what I did? And then I can say to you, Mr. President, you promised to do this, and we can assess your leadership a year from now. What would have happened for you to be satisfied with your first year in office?
I believe that this time next year, we will have a lot of smallholder farmers out there says you helped us. We are food secure. In fact, you helped us with the establishment of markets, and so that we have prospered. It's not just the middle people that have made money. We have made money, and that young people will say you have helped us make something out of nothing really with our life, because you have empowered us. Women will be able to say, I'm so glad my business is going right now because I was enabled and given the impetus to make it in life. I will believe that this time next year, we will have passed legislation that empowers more institutions, that rather than a president as an institution of its own, that more powers will be given to these institutions, and they will be happy to say, for the first time, we have the freedom to operate without necessarily being under the armpits of a president that wants his way no matter what.
Mr. President, it really has been an honor talking to you. Thanks so much for giving us your time, and we wish you the very best of luck in office.
I sure appreciate you, and what an honor.
So that was President Chakwera speaking to me a little bit earlier on, exclusive interview that he gave to the SABC news channel about his vision for Malawi going forward, the things that he needs to do, and really sort of reiterating the point that it has to be a team effort, and that Malawians need to appreciate that there will be some sacrifice that's required to get Malawi on the path that he has envisioned.